The rain had just begun to fall over the Navy training base in Coronado, California, casting a silvery sheen over the asphalt and filling the air with the sharp scent of salt and iron. Cadet Lily Brooks jogged along the narrow path near the obstacle course, her boots hitting the wet ground in steady rhythm. Her uniform was soaked, her muscles ached, and yet her face held that same cold determination that had earned her both admiration and resentment. She was a Navy SEAL, one of the few women to ever make it through Hell Week, and now she was back as an instructor. But not everyone respected her position. Some of the new male recruits whispered behind her back, convinced that she had been given an easy pass just because of her gender. She'd heard it all before. She'd ignored it all before. But today, things would be different. The group of 5 recruits stood under the awning near the obstacle pit, exchanging smirks as Lily passed. Their leader, a broad-shouldered man named Jackson, spat on the ground and muttered, "SEAL or not, she shouldn't be here." "Yeah," another added, "I bet Command just wanted a pretty face for PR." They laughed. Lily didn't even turn her head. Her posture was perfect, movements sharp and fluid. That quiet confidence made them angrier than any words could have. She stopped at the edge of the field, checking the timing chart on her clipboard, when she sensed it, the faint crunch of boots behind her, the shift in the air. Years of combat and training had wired her body to react before her mind even registered the threat. But she didn't move yet. She wanted to know what they'd do. Jackson gave a silent signal to his buddies. "Let's see how tough the legendary SEAL really is," he whispered. They approached, pretending to be casual. The rain picked up, drumming against the tin roof of the shed nearby. Lily continued writing on her chart, the pen steady in her gloved hand. Then it happened. A hard shove between her shoulder blades sent her forward. Her clipboard flew from her hand, papers scattering across the muddy ground. She stumbled, but only for half a heartbeat. Her boots caught the ground with perfect balance as her body twisted, and by the time the recruits realized what was happening, the air around them changed. Her eyes had gone cold. "What was that?" she asked softly, her voice calm, too calm. Jackson smirked. "Relax, ma'am, just a little joke." Lily stepped closer, her gaze steady. "A joke?" The other recruits shifted uneasily. Something in her stance, shoulders slightly forward, knees bent, weight balanced, told them she wasn't amused. "You think shoving someone from behind is a joke?" she asked, voice still low but sharper now. Jackson folded his arms. "You're not in the field anymore. Don't take it so seriously." Lily's lips twitched, not into a smile, but something colder. "You're right," she said. "This isn't the field." She took one slow step forward. "Out there, you wouldn't get the chance to push me from behind." "Because out there." Her hand shot forward before he could blink. She grabbed the front of his shirt, pivoted, and in one swift motion sent him flying over her shoulder. He hit the ground hard, water splashing around him. Before he could rise, she had already turned to the next man, who instinctively raised his arms. Too late. Her elbow drove into his sternum just enough to knock the wind from him, not to injure. The others froze. The entire sequence had taken less than 3 seconds. Lily straightened, adjusting the brim of her cap. "In the field," she continued calmly, "when you attack a SEAL from behind, you don't get up again." Jackson groaned from the mud, clutching his side. His pride was bruised worse than his ribs. "Lesson over," she said. But she didn't walk away. Instead, she crouched beside him, her tone softening slightly. "You think strength is about size. About ego. You think leadership means proving who's tougher. That mindset gets people killed." Jackson didn't answer. The rain fell harder now, soaking them both. "You're here to learn discipline," she continued. "Respect. Teamwork. If you can't respect the people beside you, you'll never survive out there." For the first time, Jackson looked her in the eyes, and what he saw there silenced the last of his arrogance. That wasn't anger or pride. It was steel. The kind forged in pain, endurance, and sacrifice. He'd heard stories about her before. About the woman who'd gone through training with a fractured rib and refused to quit. About the mission where she dragged a wounded soldier half a mile under fire. He'd thought they were just stories. Now he knew better. The rest of the recruits helped him up quietly. No one laughed anymore. Lily picked up her clipboard from the mud, wiped it off, and said, "Back to drills. 10 laps, now." They obeyed without protest, sprinting off into the rain. As she watched them run, Lily allowed herself a faint smile. She didn't enjoy humiliating anyone. But lessons like this stuck harder than lectures ever could. When the last of them disappeared behind the training wall, She looked out at the horizon, where the storm clouds were beginning to break. A faint streak of sunlight glowed through the gray, catching the edge of her wet hair. Her thoughts drifted to a memory, years ago, during her first deployment. Her own instructor, a grizzled SEAL named Cole, had once told her, "Never let them see your weakness. But never forget theirs." She'd lived by that ever since. Behind her, the sound of running boots echoed again, the recruits returning, breathing hard but silent. Their faces were different now, focused, serious, respectful. Lily nodded once, approvingly. "Good," again, and without another word, they started running once more, their bodies slicing through the rain as thunder rolled in the distance. But deep down, each of them knew, they'd never forget the moment they learned why you never, ever attack a Navy SEAL from behind. The storm had passed by evening, leaving behind a soft fog over the training base. The air smelled of wet earth and steel, and the only sounds were the steady thud of boots and the rhythmic breathing of recruits still finishing their punishment laps. Lieutenant Lily Brooks stood at the edge of the track, arms crossed, her sharp gaze following every step. She wasn't angry anymore, just observant. She could tell who was pushing past pain and who was giving up inside. Jackson, the recruit who had shoved her earlier that day, was still running. His shirt clung to his back, his legs trembling with exhaustion. Every breath came ragged, but he didn't stop. Not after what had happened. Not after realizing how close he'd come to making a mistake that could have ended his career before it even started. When the final whistle blew, the recruits collapsed onto the wet grass. Lily's boots clicked against the pavement as she walked toward them. "Up," she said simply. They obeyed instantly. Today was a lesson. Tomorrow will be a test. Her voice carried no trace of anger now. It was calm, steady, almost surgical. "You want to wear this uniform. Earn it. You want to survive combat. Learn discipline. You think the enemy cares if you're tired, cold, or angry." She paused, looking each of them in the eye. "Out there, you don't get a second chance to correct arrogance." She turned and walked away toward the armory building, her silhouette cutting through the fog. But Jackson didn't move. He stood there for a long time, chest heaving, replaying the scene in his mind. How she'd flipped him like he weighed nothing, how her eyes had turned from calm to lethal in a blink. He had mocked her once. Now, he wanted to learn from her. The next morning dawned clear and cold. The recruits assembled at 0500 for the obstacle course challenge. It was the hardest part of their training cycle, a brutal sequence designed to push even the strongest to their breaking point. Lily was there early, as always. She was crouched beside a rope wall, inspecting knots, when Jackson approached her. His voice was low. "Lieutenant Brooks." She turned. "Corporal, he began, scratching the back of his neck, wanted to apologize. "For what happened yesterday. I was out of line." Lily studied him silently for a moment. Then, a slight nod. "Apology accepted," she said. "But don't tell me you're sorry. Show me you've learned." "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Then stay close today. You're leading the team." His eyes widened. "Me. You wanted to prove you're strong," she said. "Let's see if you can lead." The recruits exchanged nervous glances. Jackson's heart pounded, but he nodded. "Understood." The course began with a mile-long sprint through the woods, then a climb across a suspended rope bridge, followed by a crawl under barbed wire through mud and water. It was pure chaos, screams, orders, the crash of boots in wet ground. But this time, Lily wasn't there to intimidate. She was watching quietly, noting every decision. Halfway through the course, one of the recruits slipped from the rope bridge and twisted his ankle. The team froze for a second, uncertain. Jackson hesitated, then looked to Lily, who stood on the far side, arms folded. She didn't move to help. "Your call," her eyes seemed to say. Jackson gritted his teeth, dropped down beside the injured recruit, and barked orders. "Get him up. We don't leave anyone behind." Two others helped the man to his feet while the rest covered their pace. By the time they crossed the finish line, they were drenched, bruised, and completely spent, but no one had fallen behind. Lily blew the whistle, checking her stopwatch. 39 minutes. "Not bad," she said. Then she looked directly at Jackson. "You didn't abandon your man." "No, ma'am," he said. "That's the difference between a soldier and a SEAL," she said quietly. "Strength means nothing if you can't protect the person next to you." There was a long silence before she added, "You've learned something most people never do until it's too late." For the first time, Jackson saw a faint glimmer of approval in her expression. The rest of the week, the dynamic in the unit changed. The jokes disappeared, the whispers stopped. Lily's presence commanded respect, earned, not forced. The recruits began to mirror her discipline. Quiet focus, precision, and an understanding that confidence without humility was a liability. One night, after lights out, Jackson sat in the mess hall alone, sipping coffee when Lily walked in, her hair damp from the rain again. She gave him a nod and sat across from him. "You did well today," she said. "Thanks, ma'am," he replied. Then, after a pause, "Can I ask you something?" "Go ahead. Why do you do this? I mean, after everything you've been through, why come back here to train people like us?" She stared into her mug for a long moment before answering. "Because someone once did the same for me," she said softly. "And because the next war won't wait for you to be ready. It'll test you when you least expect it. My job is to make sure you survive that test." Jackson nodded slowly. He understood now, it wasn't just about drills or combat. It was about building warriors who understood the weight of responsibility that came with power. Lily stood, preparing to leave, but paused at the door. "One more thing," she said, glancing back. "The next time someone attacks you from behind, don't react with anger. React with control. The strongest weapon you have isn't your fists. It's your mind." With that, she walked out into the rain, her figure vanishing into the night. Months later, when the recruits graduated, they stood at attention in perfect formation. The commanding officer spoke first, but when Lily's name was mentioned, the applause was loud and genuine. She stepped forward to shake each of their hands, her expression unreadable but her eyes proud. When she reached Jackson, he snapped a perfect salute. "Thank you, ma'am," he said. "For everything." She returned the salute. "Make it count," she said quietly. "Out there, someone's life will depend on you." Years later, in a dusty village overseas, Jackson would remember those exact words. His unit was ambushed in the night, and chaos erupted all around him. A grenade went off nearby, throwing him to the ground. When he turned, one of his men was down, bleeding, terrified. And then, instinct took over. He didn't run. He didn't freeze. He moved like a shadow, silent, fast, precise. Every movement was calm, deliberate, like she had taught him. Within minutes, the ambush was neutralized, and his team was safe. As the dust settled, one of the younger soldiers looked at him and whispered, "Sir, how did you stay so calm?" Jackson just smiled faintly. "Because someone once taught me what happens when you attack a Navy SEAL from behind." And somewhere back home, on another base drenched in rain, Lieutenant Lily Brooks stood watching a new generation of recruits take the field, ready to pass on the same lesson that had turned fear into discipline, arrogance into strength, and soldiers into warriors.